Rain turned the Berkshire Highway into a black mirror. Elizabeth Calloway's sneakers hit the asphalt in uneven rhythm, one step fast, the next slower, like her body couldn't decide between running and collapsing. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be sitting at her father's kitchen table, nodding along to whatever lie he told himself about survival. Instead, she was soaked through, hood plastered to her skull, lungs screaming for air she couldn't quite catch. Her father's voice still echoed in her head, calm as a man ordering coffee. "She's beautiful. You're hungry for something new. I'm hungry for food. Everyone gets what they want." Elizabeth had frozen in the hallway, one hand on the doorframe, listening to her own life get bartered over speakerphone. The man on the other end, Brock Hargrove, had laughed. Not the kind of laugh that means joy, the kind that means ownership. 10 wives, people whispered about him, 10 women who smile like their faces might crack if they stop. Elizabeth hadn't waited to hear the price. She'd grabbed her jacket and left through the back door into rain that felt like the sky was trying to drown her before Hargrove could. Now, 2 hours later, her phone was dead, her feet were blistered, and the road stretched endlessly in both directions, empty except for the storm. She didn't hear the truck until it was close enough to feel the hum of an engine cutting through the rain's static. Headlights swept across her back, turning the world white for a second. Elizabeth's pulse spiked. She didn't turn around, didn't stop, just kept walking, shoulders tight. Every instinct screaming, "Don't look, don't look, don't look." The truck slowed, her breath hitched. It pulled alongside her, tires hissing through puddles, and the passenger window rolled down. A voice called out, male, steady, not aggressive. "Hey, you okay?" Elizabeth's jaw clenched. She kept her eyes forward. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." She risked a glance. 3 men sat inside the truck. The driver had dark hair slicked back from rain, sharp jawline, eyes like winter, blue and unreadable. The one in the passenger seat leaned forward slightly, watching her with a kind of careful intensity that made her skin prickle. The third sat in the back, quiet, arms crossed, but his gaze tracked her every movement. Not just men, something deeper. Elizabeth's instincts, the wolf-born ones she'd learned to trust before words, whispered a warning that didn't quite make sense. Dangerous. Controlled. Not pack. "Storm's getting worse," the driver said. His voice was calm, but there was weight behind it. Command. "There's nowhere safe out here." Elizabeth's fingers tightened around the straps of her jacket. "I don't need your help." The passenger seat one, lighter energy, quicker smile, tilted his head. "Then why are you shaking?" Because she was. Her hands trembled, her breath came in short gasps, and rain dripped from her chin in a steady stream that felt like surrender. "I don't know you," Elizabeth said, and hated how her voice cracked. The quiet one in the back finally spoke, softer than the others. "You don't. But we're not the ones hunting you." Elizabeth's heart stopped. "How did he—" The driver's gaze flicked to the rearview mirror, then back to her. "We passed 2 trucks about 10 miles back, black SUVs, moving slow, scanning the roads." Elizabeth's stomach dropped. Hargrove's people. The passenger seat man leaned closer to the window, rain catching in his hair. "Look, we're heading to a motel in the next town. Storm's only getting worse. You can ride with us, get dry, figure out your next move." He paused. "Or you can stay out here and see who finds you first." Elizabeth wanted to say no. Every rational part of her brain screamed that getting into a truck with 3 strange men was the kind of decision that ended badly. But the alternative, being dragged back to her father's house, to Hargrove's compound, to a life where her body was currency, felt worse than any risk these strangers posed. She looked at the driver. His expression didn't shift, didn't soften, just waited. "One ride," Elizabeth said finally, voice barely audible over the rain. "That's it." The back door opened. The inside of the truck smelled like pine and leather, and something else she couldn't name, something that made her wolf instincts hum low in her chest. Not a threat, not comfort either, just presence. Elizabeth climbed in, dripping water onto the seat, and pulled the door shut. The quiet one, she still didn't have names, sat beside her, but kept space between them, like he understood that proximity was a language she didn't want to speak yet. The driver pulled back onto the road. Rain hammered the windshield in sheets. No one spoke for a long moment. Then the passenger seat man glanced back at her, easy smile in place. "I'm Enzo." Elizabeth didn't answer. He didn't seem bothered, just gestured to the driver. "That's Easton." Then to the man beside her. "Everett." Easton's eyes stayed on the road. Everett gave a slight nod but said nothing. Elizabeth pulled her knees up to her chest, arms wrapped tight around them. She felt small, trapped, but also, unexpectedly, warmer than she'd been in hours. "You got a name?" Enzo asked. Elizabeth hesitated. Giving a name felt like giving power, but refusing felt like fear, and she was already drowning in that. "Elizabeth." Enzo's grin softened into something that almost looked genuine. "Elizabeth." "Okay. So, Elizabeth, you always run through storms, or is tonight special?" Her jaw tightened. "I'm not answering that." "Fair." Easton's voice cut in, quieter than before but sharper. "The trucks we saw. You know who they belong to?" Elizabeth's pulse kicked. She stared at the back of his head, trying to decide how much truth she could afford. "Maybe." Everett shifted beside her. "That's not a no." Elizabeth exhaled slowly. "They belong to someone who thinks he owns me." Silence dropped like a stone. Enzo turned fully in his seat, smile gone. "Owns you?" "My father sold me." The words came out flat, emotionless, because if she let herself feel them, she'd break. "To an alpha named Brock Hargrove. I left before the deal closed." Easton's hands tightened on the wheel. Everett went very still. Enzo's expression shifted into something dark and unreadable. "Hargrove," Easton repeated, and the way he said it made Elizabeth's skin crawl. Not surprise, recognition. "You know him," Elizabeth said. Not a question. "We know of him," Everett corrected quietly. "He's not someone you run from lightly." Elizabeth's laugh came out bitter. "Yeah, well, I didn't have a choice that felt lighter." Enzo's gaze softened. "Your father will come looking." "I know. And Hargrove doesn't take refunds." "I know that too." Easton glanced at her in the rearview mirror, and for the first time Elizabeth saw something other than control in his eyes. Anger, not at her, at the situation, at the man who thought he could buy her. "Where were you planning to go?" Easton asked. Elizabeth's throat tightened. "I don't know. Anywhere that isn't here." The truck's headlights cut through rain and fog, illuminating a road that seemed to stretch into nothing. Elizabeth pressed her forehead against the cold window and closed her eyes. She didn't know these men. Didn't trust them. But for the first time since her father's kitchen, she wasn't alone. And that terrified her almost as much as everything else. The motel appeared through the storm like a mirage, neon sign flickering, half the letters burned out. The parking lot was nearly full, cars huddled together like animals seeking shelter. Easton pulled up to the office. Rain drummed against the roof in a relentless rhythm. "Stay here," he said, and climbed out before anyone could argue. Enzo glanced back at Elizabeth. "You good?" She wasn't, but she nodded anyway. Everett's voice was low, almost too quiet to hear over the storm. "You don't have to go back." Elizabeth's chest tightened. "You don't know what you're offering." "Maybe not," Everett admitted. "But I know what it looks like when someone's running from something they didn't choose." Elizabeth looked at him, really looked. His face was calm, but his eyes held something older, something that understood. Before she could respond, Easton returned, rain dripping from his hair. He slid back into the driver's seat and didn't look at anyone. "One room left," he said. Elizabeth's stomach sank. "One?" Enzo's mouth quirked. "Yeah, that's what 'one room left' means." Everett sighed quietly, like he'd been expecting this. Easton started the engine. "We'll make it work." Elizabeth stared at the back of his head, pulse thrumming in her throat. 1 room, 1 bed, 3 strangers. The smart choice would have been to walk away, find another motel, keep running. But the rain was turning into a wall. The road behind them felt like a trap. And somewhere out there, Brock Hargrove's people were still searching. Elizabeth swallowed hard. "Fine," she whispered. 1 room. The truck rolled forward, headlights cutting through the storm, and Elizabeth closed her eyes against the fear rising in her chest. She'd made her choice. Now she had to survive it. The motel room smelled like old carpet and something faintly chemical, cleaning solution that hadn't quite masked decades of other people's lives. Elizabeth stepped inside first, water pooling at her feet, and stopped. 1 bed, not even queen-sized, double at best. The heater rattled to life in the corner, coughing warm air that did nothing to settle the tightness in her chest. Enzo moved past her, dropping a duffel bag near the chair. "Cozy." Easton closed the door behind them with a soft click that felt louder than it should. The lock turned. Elizabeth's pulse jumped at the sound. Everett stayed near the bathroom, arms crossed, watching her like he could read the panic she was trying to bury. "You can take the bed," Easton said. His voice was flat, matter of fact. "We'll figure out the floor." Elizabeth turned to face him, hair dripping onto her shoulders. "I'm not kicking you out of the only bed. You're not kicking us anywhere." Enzo peeled off his wet jacket and tossed it over the chair. "We're offering." "I don't need charity." Enzo's grin flickered back into place. "Good, because this isn't charity. This is survival logistics." Elizabeth's jaw tightened. She hated how reasonable he sounded. Hated that she didn't have a better option. Hated that the alternative was walking back out into the storm and hoping Hargrove's people didn't catch her scent before dawn. "Fine," she muttered, "but I'm locking the bathroom when I change." Everett's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Fair. Elizabeth grabbed the cleanest towel she could find from the shelf above the toilet and shut herself inside the cramped bathroom. The door didn't latch properly unless she slammed it, so she did. The sound echoed. Her reflection stared back from the mirror, pale, hollow-eyed, hair plastered to her cheeks in dark streaks. She looked like something dragged out of a river. Elizabeth stripped out of her soaked clothes and tried not to think about the 3 men on the other side of the door, tried not to think about how warm the truck had been. How Everett's quiet presence had felt steady instead of threatening. How Easton's anger at Hargrove's name had been sharp and real. She pulled on the oversized motel t-shirt and a pair of leggings from her bag, dry but barely warmer. When she stepped back out, the room had shifted. Easton sat on the floor near the door, back against the wall, eyes half closed but alert. Everett stood by the window, staring out at the rain like he was tracking something invisible. Enzo leaned against the dresser, spinning a keycard between his fingers. All 3 of them turned when she entered. Elizabeth froze. The air changed. Not temperature, not sound. Something underneath. A shift so subtle she almost missed it. Except her instincts didn't. Her wolf-born senses flared, sharp and sudden, like static before lightning. She smelled pine, storm, smoke, and something else. Something that made her breath catch in her throat. Enzo stopped spinning the key. Easton's eyes opened fully, locking onto her with an intensity that felt like weight. Everett turned from the window, expression unreadable but tense. Elizabeth's heartbeat kicked into overdrive. "What?" she said, voice sharper than she meant it to be. No one answered right away. Then Enzo exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath. "Nothing. You just smell different." Elizabeth's skin prickled. "Different how?" Easton stood, movements deliberate, controlled. Warmer. That didn't make sense. She was freezing. Her hands still trembled from cold, her feet numb in damp socks. But the way they were looking at her, like they'd just noticed something they couldn't unsee, made her pulse race for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Everett's voice came out quieter than before. You should get some sleep. Elizabeth didn't move. Why are you all staring at me? We're not, Enzo said, but his gaze hadn't left her face. You are. Easton stepped closer, not threatening but deliberate, close enough that Elizabeth could feel the heat radiating off him, smell the rain still clinging to his clothes. His eyes swept over her face, down to her throat, then back up. You're safe here, he said. Steady. Absolute. Elizabeth's breath hitched. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. She wanted to argue, wanted to demand the truth, but exhaustion pressed down on her like a physical thing. And the bed looked impossibly soft compared to the wet road she'd been running on hours ago. Elizabeth crossed to the bed and sat on the edge, pulling her knees up. The mattress dipped under her weight. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the three men who'd somehow become the only thing standing between her and the worst night of her life. Thank you, she said quietly. For the ride. For this. Enzo's expression softened. Don't thank us yet. Why not? Everett turned back to the window, jaw tight. Because morning's going to come fast, and your father's people won't stop looking. Elizabeth's stomach twisted. She knew that. Had known it the second she ran. But hearing it out loud made it real in a way that hurt. What happens when they find me? She whispered. Easton's voice was low, almost dangerous. They won't. Elizabeth looked at him. You can't promise that. I just did. The certainty in his tone should have felt arrogant. Instead, it felt like an anchor. The heater coughed again, filling the silence with mechanical noise. Rain battered the window in relentless waves. Elizabeth pulled the thin blanket over her legs and lay down, still curled tight, still braced for something she couldn't name. Enzo grabbed a pillow and tossed it to the floor near the door. Easton settled back against the wall. Everett stayed by the window, silhouette sharp against the dim light filtering through rain-streaked glass. Elizabeth closed her eyes. But sleep didn't come, because every time she inhaled, she caught their scent again. Pine, storm, smoke, and something deep in her chest pulled tight, like a thread being drawn taut between her ribs and theirs. She didn't understand it, didn't trust it. But for the first time in hours, the fear in her veins felt less like drowning and more like anticipation. And that scared her more than anything else. Elizabeth's eyes snapped open. She didn't remember closing them, didn't remember sleep arriving. But the room was darker now, the rain softer, and her body had uncurled slightly under the blanket. Her breath came shallow, too fast, because the scent was stronger. Pine, storm, smoke, all three layered together like they belonged that way. Like they'd always been meant to tangle into something she couldn't ignore. Elizabeth's pulse kicked. She turned her head slowly, carefully, and saw Easton still against the wall near the door, eyes closed, breathing even. Enzo sprawled on the floor near the chair, one arm thrown over his face. Everett remained by the window, but his posture had softened, head tilted back against the frame, still watching, always watching. None of them were asleep. She could tell by the tension in their shoulders, the way Easton's fingers flexed against his knee, the way Enzo's breathing didn't quite match the rhythm of rest. They were waiting. For what? Elizabeth didn't know. But the air felt charged, like static before a storm breaks. She sat up slowly, blanket pooling around her waist. Her throat was dry, her skin too warm despite the cold that had seeped into her bones hours ago. Can't sleep? Everett's voice cut through the quiet, low and careful. Elizabeth flinched. I didn't think you could either. His mouth twitched. I don't sleep much. Why not? Habit. That wasn't an answer, but Elizabeth didn't push. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, feet hitting cold carpet, and stood. The room tilted slightly. Exhaustion or adrenaline, she couldn't tell. Enzo shifted, lowering his arm. His eyes tracked her movement. You okay? Stop asking me that. Stop giving me reasons to ask. Elizabeth's jaw tightened. I'm fine. You're shaking. She looked down. Her hands were trembling again. Not from cold this time, from something deeper. Something that felt like her body was trying to decide between fight or flight and couldn't settle on either. "I need air," Elizabeth muttered, moving toward the door. Easton's hand shot out, catching her wrist. Not rough, not tight, just there. "No," he said. Elizabeth yanked back. "Excuse me, you're not going outside?" Her laugh came out sharp, disbelieving. "You don't get to tell me what to do." Easton stood, still holding her wrist, and the sheer presence of him made the room feel smaller. His eyes locked onto hers. Glacial blue, unblinking. "Hargrove's people are out there," Easton said quietly. "You step outside, you're a target." "I'm a target in here too," Elizabeth snapped. "Trapped in a room with 3 strangers who won't tell me why they keep staring at me like I'm something they lost." Silence dropped like a weight. Enzo sat up fully, elbows on his knees. Everett turned from the window, expression unreadable. Elizabeth's chest heaved. "What aren't you telling me?" Easton released her wrist, but didn't step back. "Nothing you're ready to hear." "Try me." "No." Elizabeth's hands curled into fists. "I didn't ask for your protection. I didn't ask to be here. So either tell me the truth or let me leave." Enzo's voice cut in, softer than before. "You think leaving makes you safer?" "I think staying makes me a prisoner." Everett moved closer, footsteps deliberate. "You're not a prisoner." "Then what am I?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. Elizabeth's throat burned. She hated how vulnerable she felt. Hated that she wanted them to answer. Hated that part of her didn't want to leave at all. "You're someone who deserves a choice," Everett said finally. "That's all." Elizabeth's laugh came out bitter. "Choice. Right. Because running from my father, selling me to a monster, was such a great choice. Because getting into a truck with 3 men I don't know was brilliant. Because standing here, feeling like my skin's on fire every time one of you gets too close, is exactly what I wanted." Enzo stood, movements slow, hands raised like he was approaching something wild. "What do you mean your skin's on fire?" Elizabeth's breath hitched. She hadn't meant to say that, hadn't meant to admit it. But now the words were out, and all 3 of them were staring at her with expressions that made her stomach twist. "Forget it," Elizabeth muttered, turning away. Easton caught her arm again. "Elizabeth, let go. Not until you answer the question." Elizabeth spun on him, fury flashing hot and sudden. "Why do you care? You picked me up off the side of the road. You gave me a ride. That doesn't make you responsible for me." "No," Easton agreed. "It doesn't." "Then why won't you let me go?" His jaw tightened. "Because you're not safe out there." "And I'm safe here?" Everett's voice cut through, quiet but firm. "Yes." Elizabeth stared at him. "You don't even know me." "We know enough." "Like what?" Elizabeth's voice cracked. "That I'm running? That I'm desperate? That I don't have anywhere else to go?" Enzo stepped closer, and his scent hit her again. Pine and warmth, and something that made her wolf instincts hum low in her chest. "We know you're stronger than you think," Enzo said softly. "And we know you didn't deserve what your father did." Elizabeth's eyes stung. She blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. "You don't know anything about me." "Then tell us." The invitation hung there, simple and impossible. Elizabeth wanted to scream every truth she'd been swallowing since her father made that phone call. Wanted to collapse and let someone else carry the weight for once. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "I'm tired," Elizabeth said instead, voice hollow. "I'm going back to bed." Easton released her arm. Enzo stepped aside. Everett watched her with eyes that saw too much. Elizabeth climbed back onto the bed, pulled the blanket over herself, and turned toward the wall. Behind her, she heard them settle. Heard the quiet shift of bodies finding space on the floor. Heard the rain pick up again, drumming against the window like a heartbeat. And underneath it all, she felt the pull, that invisible thread between her ribs and theirs, drawing tighter with every breath. Elizabeth closed her eyes and tried to ignore it, but ignoring it felt like ignoring gravity, inevitable, inescapable, terrifying. Minutes passed, maybe hours, time stretched in the dark, measured only by the rhythm of rain against glass and the sound of her own heartbeat refusing to slow. Then the cold hit, not gradual, sudden, like someone had opened a window directly into winter. Elizabeth's breath misted in front of her face. She pulled the blanket tighter, curling into herself, but the cold seeped through fabric and skin until her bones ached with it. The heater had stopped. No rattle, no cough of warm air, just silence and the kind of cold that made her teeth chatter no matter how hard she clenched her jaw. "Heater's dead," Enzo's voice came from the floor, quiet but awake. Elizabeth didn't open her eyes. "I noticed." She heard movement. Easton crossing the room, the sound of him crouching near the unit, testing something, a low curse under his breath. "Compressor's shot," Easton said. "It's not coming back on." Everett's voice came from near the window. "Power's still working, just the heat." Elizabeth's fingers were numb. She tucked them under her arms, pressing herself into a tighter ball, but it didn't help. The cold was relentless. "So, what now?" Elizabeth's voice came out sharper than she meant, edged with frustration and exhaustion. "We just freeze?" "We wait it out," Easton said. Elizabeth sat up, blanket clutched around her shoulders. "Wait it out? It's already freezing. By morning we'll be hypothermic." "You won't freeze," Everett said quietly. "Really? Because I can't feel my feet." Enzo pushed himself up to sitting, rubbing his arms. "He's right. You won't." Elizabeth's glare could have cut glass. "And why's that? You three secretly furnaces?" Enzo's mouth quirked despite the cold. "Something like that." "That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting." Elizabeth's jaw tightened. She hated Cryptic, hated being kept in the dark, hated that they kept talking around her like she was too fragile to handle the truth. "I'm tired of this," Elizabeth said, voice low and sharp. "Tired of half answers, tired of being treated like I'm breakable." Easton turned to face her fully. "You're not breakable." "Then stop acting like I am." "We're not. You are, all of you. You keep staring at me like I'm going to shatter, keep hovering like I can't handle myself." Elizabeth's breath came faster, anger warming her more than the blanket ever could. "I ran from my father. I ran from Hargrove. I'm still here. I'm not glass." Silence settled heavy in the room. Then Everett spoke, voice softer than she'd heard it yet. "We know." Elizabeth looked at him. His expression was open for the first time since she'd met him. No walls, no careful distance. Just truth. "Then why won't you tell me what's going on?" Elizabeth whispered. Everett glanced at Easton, then back to her. "Because some things are harder to explain than to feel." "That's not good enough." "It's all we have right now." Elizabeth wanted to scream, wanted to demand better, but the cold was seeping deeper, and her body was starting to shake in a way that had nothing to do with anger. Enzo stood, moving closer to the bed. "Look, we can argue about trust and truth all night, but right now, you're freezing. And the only way to fix that is body heat." Elizabeth's heart kicked. Body heat. "Yeah. As in we share the bed," Enzo said simply. "All of us. Or you keep shaking yourself apart over there." Elizabeth's pulse roared in her ears. "I'm fine." "You're not," Easton said. "Your lips are turning blue." "I said I'm fine." Everett stepped closer, hands loose at his sides. "Elizabeth, this isn't about control. It's about survival. You need warmth. We can provide it. That's all this is." Elizabeth's throat tightened. Part of her wanted to refuse, wanted to prove she didn't need them, didn't need anyone. But another part of her, the part that remembered what it felt like to be warm, that remembered safety even if it was borrowed, whispered that maybe pride wasn't worth dying for. "This doesn't mean I trust you," Elizabeth said finally. Enzo's grin returned, softer this time. "Noted. And if any of you try anything—" "We won't," Easton cut in, voice firm. You have my word. Elizabeth looked between the three of them, saw exhaustion in Enzo's eyes, saw control in Easton's posture, saw steady patience in Everett's expression, and beneath it all, she felt that pull again, that invisible thread drawing her toward them like gravity. Fine, Elizabeth muttered, but I'm staying on the outside edge. Deal. She scooted to the far side of the bed, back pressed against the wall, blanket still wrapped around her like armor. Enzo climbed in first, settling near the middle with careful distance. Everett followed, movements deliberate and slow, giving her space to object. Easton turned off the lamp. Darkness flooded the room, broken only by faint light from the parking lot filtering through rain-streaked glass. Then Easton joined them, the mattress dipping under his weight, and suddenly the bed felt impossibly small. Elizabeth's breath hitched. Heat radiated from all three of them. Not uncomfortable, not overwhelming, just present. Real. A wall of warmth that pushed back against the cold like a promise. She closed her eyes, trying to focus on anything except how close they were, how their breathing seemed to sync with hers, how the scent of pine and storm and smoke wrapped around her like a second blanket. You okay? Everett's voice came quiet from beside her. No, Elizabeth admitted, but I'm warmer. That's a start. Minutes passed. The shaking in her limbs slowed, then stopped. Her fingers thawed. Her heartbeat steadied into something almost calm. And despite everything, despite the fear and the questions and the impossibility of her situation, Elizabeth felt safe, which terrified her more than the cold ever could. Elizabeth's eyes stayed closed, but sleep felt impossibly far away. Her mind wouldn't quiet, wouldn't stop circling back to the same questions she couldn't answer. Why did their presence feel like coming home when she'd never met them before tonight? Why did her body respond to their nearness like recognition instead of fear? Why did the space between her ribs ache every time one of them shifted, like something inside her was reaching toward them without permission? You're thinking too loud, Enzo murmured from somewhere to her left. Elizabeth's eyes snapped open. I'm not thinking anything. Liar! How would you even know? Your breathing changes when you're stressed, gets faster, shallower. Elizabeth turned her head slightly, just enough to see his outline in the dark. You've known me for like 6 hours. You don't know anything about my breathing. Enzo's voice carried that infuriating smile again. I'm a fast learner. You're annoying. That too. Despite everything, Elizabeth's mouth twitched, almost a smile. She caught it before it fully formed and turned back toward the wall. Silence settled again, but it felt different now, less heavy, almost comfortable. Then Everett spoke, quiet enough that Elizabeth almost missed it. You don't have to tell us, but if you want to, we're listening. Elizabeth's throat tightened. Tell you what. Why you were really running. Her pulse kicked. I already told you. My father sold me. That's what happened, Everett said. Not why it broke you. Elizabeth's breath caught. She wanted to snap at him, wanted to tell him he didn't know anything about what broke her or didn't. But the words stuck in her throat because he was right. Being sold was horrifying. But it wasn't what shattered her. What shattered her was that her father had looked at her like currency, like the only value she held was what someone else would pay, like she was never a person to begin with. He didn't even hesitate, Elizabeth whispered. The words came out before she could stop them. When Hargrove made the offer, my father didn't ask if I wanted it, didn't apologize, he just agreed. Like I was a chair he didn't need anymore. The room went still. Easton's voice came low and controlled, but Elizabeth heard the anger underneath. How long has he been like that? Elizabeth's laugh came out broken. Always. I just didn't want to see it. She swallowed hard, fingers twisting in the blanket. My mom left when I was 10, just walked out one morning and never came back. I used to think maybe she had a good reason. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was sick. But now I wonder if she just saw what I couldn't. Saw what? Enzo asked gently. That my father doesn't love people. He uses them. And when they stop being useful, He throws them away. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Then Everett shifted closer, not touching her, but near enough that she felt the warmth of him. "You're not a thing to be used." Elizabeth's eyes burned. "Tell that to Hargrove. Hargrove's dead if he touches you." The certainty in Easton's voice sent a chill down Elizabeth's spine that had nothing to do with cold. She turned her head, trying to see his face in the dark. "You can't promise that. I just did. You don't even know me. Doesn't matter." Elizabeth's chest tightened. "Why? Why do you care what happens to some random girl you picked up off the side of the road?" No one answered right away. The rain picked up again, drumming harder against the window. The room felt smaller, closer, like the walls were pressing in. Then Enzo spoke, and his voice had lost all its humor. "Because you're not random." Elizabeth's heart stopped. "What does that mean?" "It means—" Enzo trailed off, like he was searching for words that didn't exist. "It means we've been looking for something, and we think we found it." Elizabeth's pulse roared in her ears. "Looking for what?" "Someone who doesn't belong to this place," Everett said quietly. "Someone who's been running their whole life without knowing why." Elizabeth's stomach dropped. "I don't understand." "You will," Easton said, "but not tonight." Frustration flared hot in Elizabeth's chest. "Stop doing that. Stop talking in riddles like I'm supposed to just accept not knowing." "We're not trying to hide things from you," Everett said. "We're trying to keep you safe." "From what?" "From us." The words landed like a punch. Elizabeth sat up, blanket falling to her waist. She twisted to face them, heart hammering. "What does that mean?" Enzo sat up too, running a hand through his hair. "It means we're not just passing through Massachusetts. We're here for a reason, and that reason is dangerous." "What reason?" Easton's silhouette shifted. "There's something crossing into pack territories. Something that shouldn't exist. And we were sent to stop it." Elizabeth's skin prickled. "Sent by who?" "People who don't take no for an answer," Enzo said. "People who would do anything to protect what's theirs." Elizabeth's breath came faster. "And what does that have to do with me?" Silence stretched so long, Elizabeth thought they wouldn't answer. Then Everett spoke, and his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Because the thing we're hunting isn't just after territory, it's after power, specific power. The kind that only one person in a generation is born with." Elizabeth's mouth went dry. "What kind of power?" "The kind that can burn demons," Easton said, "or open doors that should stay closed." Elizabeth's world tilted. "You think I'm, what, some kind of weapon?" "No," Enzo said quickly. "We think you're a person, but we also think you're more than you know." Elizabeth's hands trembled, not from cold this time, from something deeper. Something that felt like her entire life had been a lie she'd been too scared to question. "I don't have power," Elizabeth whispered. "I'm just an omega, weak, worthless. That's what everyone's always said." "Everyone's wrong," Everett said. Elizabeth's throat closed. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe she was more than what her father saw, more than what Hargrove wanted to buy. But belief was dangerous. Belief meant hope, and hope was the cruelest lie of all. "I need to know the truth," Elizabeth said, voice shaking. "All of it. No more half answers. No more protecting me from things I deserve to understand." Easton leaned forward, and even in the dark, Elizabeth felt the weight of his gaze. "You want the truth?" "Yes." "The truth is we came to Massachusetts looking for a Phoenix Omega. Someone whose blood can seal breaches between worlds. Someone demons would kill to possess." His voice dropped. "And the moment you stepped out of the rain, we knew." Elizabeth's heart stopped. "Knew what?" Enzo's voice came quiet, almost reverent. "That you're her." Elizabeth's laugh came out sharp and disbelieving. "You're insane." "We're not," Everett said. "You are. All three of you." Elizabeth pushed herself further against the wall, heart racing. I'm not some mythical creature. I'm just a girl who got sold by her father. That's it. There's nothing special about me. Enzo's voice came gentle but firm. Then explain why you're still alive. Elizabeth's breath caught. What? Hargrove doesn't buy omegas for marriage, Enzo continued. He collects them for something else, and every single one of his wives has disappeared within 6 months. Elizabeth's stomach turned cold. Disappeared? Dead, Easton said bluntly. Or worse. Then why would my father— Because he didn't know, Everett finished. Or he didn't care. Elizabeth's chest tightened until breathing hurt. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell them they were wrong about her father, about Hargrove, about everything. But she couldn't, because deep down, underneath the fear and the denial, she'd known something was wrong the moment her father made that call, known that men like Hargrove didn't collect omegas out of loneliness. So you're saying I was supposed to die? Elizabeth whispered. We're saying Hargrove wanted you for a reason, Easton corrected, and that reason has nothing to do with marriage. Elizabeth's hands curled into fists. Then what? What does he want? Your blood, Enzo said quietly. Phoenix blood opens things, seals things, makes things possible that shouldn't be. Elizabeth's skin crawled. I don't have Phoenix blood. I don't have anything. You do, Everett said. You just haven't awakened yet. Awakened. Elizabeth's voice rose, edged with hysteria. You're talking like I'm some kind of video game character waiting to level up. I'm a person, a normal, powerless person who's had the worst night of her life and doesn't need 3 strangers telling her she's secretly magical. You're not magical, Easton said. You're dangerous. The word landed like a slap. Elizabeth stared at him, chest heaving. Dangerous. Yes. To who? To everyone, Easton said simply, including yourself. Elizabeth's throat burned. She wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to wake up and discover this entire night was a nightmare she could shake off. But the warmth radiating from the 3 men around her was too real, the pull in her chest too undeniable, the fear in their eyes too honest. I don't want this, Elizabeth whispered. Enzo shifted closer, careful not to touch her, but close enough that she felt his presence like heat. No one's asking you to. Then what are you asking? Nothing, Everett said. We're just telling you the truth. What you do with it is your choice. Elizabeth's laugh came out broken. Choice, right, because I have so many of those. You have more than you think, Enzo said softly. Really? Name one. You can run, Easton said. Walk out that door right now. We won't stop you. Elizabeth's pulse kicked. You won't? No. Why not? Because forcing you to stay makes us no better than Hargrove. The words hit harder than Elizabeth expected. She looked between them, searching for the lie, the manipulation, the trap, but all she saw was the truth, and that terrified her more than anything else. If I run, Elizabeth said slowly, Hargrove finds me. Probably, Enzo admitted. And if I stay? Then we protect you, Everett said, until we figure out what's really going on. Elizabeth's hands trembled. And then what? You hand me over to whoever sent you? Silence dropped like a stone. Then Easton spoke, and his voice was rougher than before. No. Elizabeth's breath hitched. No? We were sent to find the Phoenix Omega, Easton said, not deliver her. What's the difference? The difference, Enzo said, is that finding you changed everything. Elizabeth's heart stuttered. Change what? Everett's gaze locked onto hers, and for the first time she saw vulnerability there. Real, raw, terrifying vulnerability. Changed us, Everett said quietly. The air between them shifted, thickened. Like something invisible had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. Elizabeth's pulse roared in her ears. I don't understand. You don't have to, Enzo said. Not yet. But I want to, Elizabeth whispered. I'm tired of not understanding. tired of being in the dark, tired of feeling like everyone knows something about me that I don't. Easton leaned forward, and the movement brought him close enough that Elizabeth could see the sharp line of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. Then feel. Elizabeth's breath caught. Feel what? This. Easton's hand lifted, slow and deliberate, giving her every chance to pull away. His fingers brushed her cheek, barely a touch, but the contact sent heat spiraling through her like wildfire. Elizabeth gasped. The sensation wasn't just physical, it was deeper. Like his touch had reached past skin and bone straight into something she didn't know existed. "What is that?" Elizabeth breathed. "Recognition," Everett said from her other side. "Your wolf knows us, even if you don't." Elizabeth's hands shook. She wanted to pull away, wanted to deny it. But the warmth spreading from where Easton's fingers rested against her skin felt like safety. Like home. Like every cold, lonely night she'd ever survived had been leading to this moment. "This is crazy," Elizabeth whispered. Enzo's laugh was soft, almost sad. "Yeah, it is. I don't even know your last names." "Does it matter?" "It should." "But does it?" Elizabeth's throat tightened. "No." And that was the worst part, because it didn't matter that she'd known them for less than a day. Didn't matter that everything about this situation screamed danger. Didn't matter that trusting them could destroy her, because something deeper than logic, deeper than fear, deeper than survival, whispered that they were hers, and she was theirs. And fighting it felt like fighting gravity. "I'm scared," Elizabeth admitted, voice breaking. Easton's thumb brushed her cheekbone, gentle and devastating. "Good. Fear keeps you alive." "What if I don't want to just survive anymore?" Everett's hand found hers in the dark, fingers threading through hers with careful pressure. "Then we teach you how to live." Enzo shifted closer, his warmth pressing against her other side. "And we don't let you do it alone." Elizabeth's eyes burned. Tears slipped free before she could stop them, hot against her cold skin. She didn't know if they were from fear or relief or something too complicated to name. But for the first time since her father made that phone call, Elizabeth didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt like someone had thrown her a lifeline, and she was finally brave enough to grab it. "Okay," Elizabeth whispered. Easton's eyes searched hers. "Okay? I'll stay, for now, until we figure this out." Enzo's breath released in a soft exhale. Everett's grip on her hand tightened slightly, and Easton's expression shifted into something that looked almost like relief. "Then we protect you," Easton said, "no matter what." Elizabeth closed her eyes, letting their warmth surround her, letting the fear exist alongside the hope. Outside, the rain finally began to ease. Inside, something fragile and impossible took root. For 3 heartbeats, the room held its breath. Then Elizabeth's phone buzzed. The sound cut through the quiet like a gunshot. Sharp, intrusive, wrong. Elizabeth's entire body went rigid. Her phone was dead, had been dead for hours. She'd watched the screen go black on the side of the road, battery drained, no way to charge it. But now it was buzzing, vibrating against the nightstand in short, angry bursts. Easton moved first, reaching for it before Elizabeth could react. His expression shifted the moment he saw the screen. Something dark and dangerous crossed his face. "Don't answer it," Easton said. Elizabeth's heart kicked into overdrive. "Who is it?" Easton's jaw tightened. He turned the phone toward her. Dad Elizabeth's stomach dropped. "That's impossible. My phone's dead." "It was," Enzo said, sitting up fully now. "Someone turned it back on remotely." "That's not possible," Elizabeth repeated, but her voice shook. "It is, if you know what you're doing," Everett said quietly. "And if you're desperate enough to find someone." The phone kept buzzing, over and over, relentless. Elizabeth's breath came faster. "He's tracking me." "Probably," Easton said. "Then we need to go, now, before—" The phone stopped buzzing. Silence crashed down. Then it lit up again. Not a call this time. A text. Elizabeth's hands trembled as Easton held the screen where she could see it. "I know where you are. I know who you're with. Come home. Last chance. Elizabeth's throat closed. How does he... Another text came through before she could finish. They're not who you think they are. Elizabeth's pulse roared in her ears. She looked at Easton, then Enzo, then Everett. What does that mean? No one answered. Another text. Ask them why they're really in Massachusetts. Ask them what they were sent to do. Elizabeth's chest tightened. We already talked about this. You told me. You're looking for the Phoenix Omega. We are, Easton said. Then what is he talking about? Enzo's expression shifted. Guilt flickered across his face so fast Elizabeth almost missed it. Enzo, Elizabeth said, voice sharp. What is he talking about? Another text. Ask them what happens when they find her. Elizabeth's hands curled into fists. Answer me! Everett stood, moving toward the window like he couldn't stay still. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it. We were sent to locate the Phoenix Omega, Easton said carefully, and bring her back. Elizabeth's stomach turned to ice. Bring her back where? Silence. Where? Elizabeth's voice rose, edged with panic and fury. To the west, Enzo said quietly. To the people who sent us. Elizabeth's breath caught. And then what? What happens to her? No one answered. Another text lit up the screen. They're going to use you. Just like Hargrove. Just like me. Different cage. Same chains. Elizabeth's laugh came out broken and sharp. Is that true? No, Easton said immediately. Then why won't you tell me what happens after you bring her back? Because we don't know, Everett said, turning from the window. His expression was raw, honest, desperate. We were given orders. Locate, retrieve, that's it. We weren't told what comes next. Elizabeth's heart hammered against her ribs. And you didn't ask? We didn't care, Enzo said. Not until what? Elizabeth cut him off. Until you found me? Until you realized I wasn't just some abstract mission? Yes, Easton said bluntly. Elizabeth's eyes burned. So you lied. We didn't lie, Enzo said. We just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. It's not. It is. Elizabeth's voice cracked. She shoved the blanket off and stood, backing away from the bed. From them. You let me think you were different. Let me think you actually cared. Let me believe I was safe with you. You are safe, Everett said. Am I? Because it sounds like you were planning to hand me over the whole time. We're not handing you over, Easton said, standing now too. His voice was hard, controlled, but Elizabeth heard the desperation underneath. We're not. Then what are you doing? Trying to figure it out, Enzo said. Trying to find a way to keep you safe and not betray the people who sent us. Elizabeth's laugh came out cold. You can't have both. We know, Everett said quietly. Another text. Come home. I'll protect you from them. Elizabeth stared at the screen. Her father's words looked sincere, almost loving, like he was the hero in this story, and the three men in front of her were the villains. But Elizabeth knew better. Her father didn't protect people. He sold them. Still, the betrayal from Easton, Enzo, and Everett cut deeper than she wanted to admit, because she'd let herself believe. Let herself hope. Let herself imagine that maybe, for once, someone saw her as more than a tool. I trusted you, Elizabeth whispered. Easton's expression cracked. I know. I told you things I've never told anyone. I know. And the whole time, you were planning to take me back to people who want to use me. That's not what we want, Enzo said, stepping closer. That's what we were told to do. There's a difference. Is there? Elizabeth's voice shook. Because from where I'm standing, it looks the same. Everett moved toward her, hands raised like he was approaching something wild. Elizabeth, listen to me. We didn't know you. We didn't know what finding you would mean. But now we do. And everything's changed. Words, Elizabeth said flatly. Just words. Then let us prove it, Easton said. How? By choosing you, Easton said simply. Over orders, over duty, over everything. Elizabeth's breath hitched. You're just saying that. I'm not. Prove it. Easton's jaw tightened. Then he pulled something from his pocket. A phone, different from hers. He held it up so she could see the screen. Missed calls. Dozens of them, all from the same contact. Command Easton's thumb hovered over the screen. Then he powered it off completely. The screen went dark. That's my lifeline, Easton said quietly. That's how they track me, how they give orders, how they know I'm still loyal. He looked at Elizabeth and his eyes were raw, vulnerable, terrified. And I just cut it. Elizabeth's throat closed. Enzo pulled out his phone next, powered it off without hesitation. Me too. Everett's followed. And me. 3 phones, 3 lifelines, 3 choices, all for her. Elizabeth's chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. You're insane. Probably, Enzo said. They'll come after you. Let them. You'll lose everything. We already did, Everett said softly. The moment we decided you mattered more. Elizabeth's eyes burned. Tears spilled over before she could stop them. Why? Because you're not a mission, Easton said. You're a person, and you deserve to be treated like one. Elizabeth's hands shook. She wanted to believe them, wanted to trust that this wasn't just another manipulation, another cage with prettier bars. But trust was a knife that had cut her too many times. I don't know if I can do this, Elizabeth whispered. Then don't, Enzo said gently. Walk away. We won't stop you. Elizabeth looked at the door, then at her phone, still buzzing with her father's texts, then at the 3 men who'd just burned their entire world down for her. And she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to walk away, even knowing they'd lied, even knowing the danger, even knowing this could destroy her. She wanted to stay. I hate you, Elizabeth said, but her voice broke on the words. Easton's mouth curved into something sad. I know. I mean it. I know. Elizabeth crossed the space between them and hit Easton's chest with her fist. Not hard, just enough to feel solid, real. Don't lie to me again, Elizabeth said. I won't. Promise. I promise. Elizabeth's breath shuddered out. Then Enzo's arms wrapped around her from behind, careful and warm. Everett's hand found hers, and despite everything, Elizabeth let herself be held, for exactly 10 seconds. Then reality crashed back in. Elizabeth pulled away, wiping her face with the back of her hand. We can't just stand here. We're not, Easton said. Then what's the plan? Because my father knows where I am. Hargrove probably knows too, and you 3 just cut ties with whoever sent you, which means they'll be coming for all of us. Enzo ran a hand through his hair. When you put it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad. Fair point. Elizabeth's phone buzzed again. She grabbed it off the nightstand before anyone could stop her. 5 minutes. Then I'm calling Hargrove. Her stomach dropped. He's giving me an ultimatum. Everett moved to her side, reading over her shoulder. He's bluffing. Is he? Elizabeth's voice shook. Because it sounds like he's about to hand me over himself. He won't, Easton said. He needs you alive to get paid. Exactly. Alive. Not safe. Not free. Just alive enough to collect. Another buzz. 4 minutes. Elizabeth's breath came faster. We need to leave. Now. And go where? Enzo asked. We don't know the area. Don't know who's compromised. Don't know where Hargrove's people are positioned. So we just wait here like sitting ducks? No, Easton said, already moving toward the window. He pulled back the curtain slightly, scanning the parking lot. We move smart. Elizabeth crossed her arms, heart hammering. Define smart. We split up, Everett said. Elizabeth's head snapped toward him. Absolutely not. It's the safest option. It's the stupidest option. Splitting up in horror movies is how people die. Enzo's mouth twitched despite the tension. This isn't a horror movie. Isn't it? Elizabeth gestured at the room. 3 strangers, 1 girl. People hunting us. A supernatural conspiracy. Sounds pretty horror movie to me. She's got a point, Enzo admitted. Easton let the curtain fall. 2 trucks just pulled into the lot, black SUVs. Elizabeth's blood went cold. Hargrove. Probably. Another buzz. 3 minutes. Don't make me do this. Elizabeth stared at the text. Her father's words felt wrong. Too desperate. Too caring. Like he was trying to manipulate her with guilt instead of greed. Something's off, Elizabeth said. Everett looked at her. What do you mean? My father doesn't beg. He doesn't give ultimatums. He just does whatever benefits him most and expects everyone else to deal with it. Elizabeth's pulse kicked. This feels like a trap. For you or for us? Enzo asked. Both. Easton's jaw tightened. Then we don't give him what he wants. Which is? You panicking, running, making a mistake. Elizabeth's hands curled into fists. So what do we do? Easton pulled his jacket on, movements sharp and controlled. We go out the back. Enzo takes point. Everett covers rear. I stay with Elizabeth. I can cover myself, Elizabeth said. Easton's gaze locked onto hers. I know, but you don't have to. Elizabeth wanted to argue, wanted to prove she didn't need protection. But the truth was, she had no idea how to fight werewolves. Had no training, no strength, nothing except survival instincts and stubbornness. Fine, Elizabeth muttered. But if this goes sideways, I'm blaming you. Enzo grinned. Noted. Another buzz. 2 minutes. Elizabeth's phone lit up with a call this time. Her father's name flashed across the screen. She stared at it, pulse roaring in her ears. Don't answer, Easton said. I'm not. But her thumb hovered over the screen anyway. Part of her wanted to hear his voice, wanted to demand answers, wanted to scream at him for selling her like property. The call went to voicemail. Seconds later, a new text. Fine. I tried. Hargrove's on his way. Elizabeth's breath caught. He called him. He's lying, Everett said. How do you know? Because Hargrove's already here. Elizabeth's stomach dropped. What? Everett pointed toward the window. 3rd SUV just parked near the exit. Elizabeth crossed to the window, heart hammering. She pulled back the curtain just enough to see. A man stood beside the SUV. Older, silver hair, expensive coat. Even from a distance, Elizabeth recognized the predatory stillness in his posture. Brock Hargrove. Her throat closed. We're trapped, Elizabeth whispered. Not yet, Easton said. Back exit leads to the woods. If we move fast, we can disappear before they breach the room. And if we don't move fast enough? Easton's expression went hard. Then we fight. Elizabeth's pulse kicked. She wasn't a fighter, wasn't trained, wasn't strong. But the alternative was letting Hargrove drag her into whatever nightmare he'd planned. Okay, Elizabeth said. Let's go. Enzo moved to the door first, cracking it open and scanning the hallway. Clear. They slipped out one by one. Elizabeth's sneakers were still damp, squeaking softly against the worn carpet. Every sound felt too loud, every breath too visible. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lit by flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects. Emergency exit sign glowed red at the far end. They were halfway there when Elizabeth heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Coming from the stairwell. Easton grabbed her arm, pulling her against the wall. Enzo and Everett flanked them, bodies tense and ready. The stairwell door opened. A man stepped through. Not Hargrove. Younger, sharper. He wore a suit that looked wrong in the dingy motel hallway. His eyes locked onto Elizabeth immediately. There you are, he said, voice smooth and cold. Your father's been worried. Elizabeth's hands trembled. I don't care. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's unfortunate, because Mr. Hargrove cares very much. Easton stepped in front of Elizabeth, blocking her from view. She's not going with you. The man's gaze flicked to Easton, then to Enzo and Everett. His expression shifted. Recognition, then something darker. The Kings, the man said slowly. Interesting. Elizabeth's breath caught. Kings. The word hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. Enzo's voice went flat. Walk away. Can't do that. Then you die here. The man's smile widened. You really think killing me stops this? There are 12 more outside. Hargroves brought his entire collection. Elizabeth's stomach turned. Collection? His wives, the man said, eyes glinting. Or what's left of them. Horror crawled up Elizabeth's spine. They're here? They're everywhere. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the hallway whole. Elizabeth's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't see, couldn't move. Every instinct screamed danger, but her body locked up. Elizabeth! Easton's voice came low and urgent in her ear. Stay close. She felt his hand find hers, grip tight and grounding. Then the screaming started. Not from the hallway, from outside. Multiple voices, female, high and broken and wrong. Elizabeth's blood turned to ice. What is that? His collection, Everett said grimly. They're not human anymore. Enzo swore under his breath. We need to move, now. Can't see, Elizabeth gasped. You don't need to, just trust me. Easton pulled her forward. Elizabeth stumbled, blind in the dark, heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. They moved fast, too fast. Elizabeth's shoulder hit the wall. She bit back a cry of pain. Then light exploded, not electric, not natural, fire, bright and golden and impossible, blooming in the hallway like a living thing. Elizabeth's hands burned. She looked down and saw flames curling around her fingers, hot but not painful. The fire moved like it was breathing, pulsing with her heartbeat. Oh, God, Elizabeth whispered. What's happening? Easton's voice came rough with something between awe and fear. You're awakening! The flames spread up her arms, illuminating the hallway in flickering gold. The man in the suit backed away, eyes wide. Phoenix, he breathed. Then he ran. The screaming outside intensified. Elizabeth heard glass shatter, heard engines roar, heard Hargrove's voice shouting orders. We have to go, Enzo said urgently. Now, before... The back exit door exploded inward. Hargrove stood in the opening, flanked by women whose eyes glowed wrong, possessed, hollow. His gaze locked onto Elizabeth and her burning hands, and he smiled. Hello, darling, Hargrove said. I've been waiting for you. Elizabeth's hands burned brighter. The fire didn't hurt. It should have blistered her skin, melted flesh from bone. Instead, it felt like breathing after being underwater too long, like finally waking up. Hargrove's smile widened. Beautiful, even better than I imagined. Elizabeth's voice came out steadier than she felt. Stay back. Or what? You'll burn me? Hargrove laughed, the sound wet and confident. Sweetheart, I've been burned before, it doesn't stick. The women flanking him moved forward in unison, eyes glowing with something that wasn't human. Their movements were wrong, too fluid, too synchronized, like puppets on invisible strings. Easton shifted, placing himself between Elizabeth and Hargrove. You don't want to do this. Don't I? Hargrove's gaze never left Elizabeth. I've invested a lot in finding her. Your father promised me something special, Elizabeth. He wasn't lying. Elizabeth's stomach twisted. My father doesn't know anything about me. He knew enough to recognize what you could become. Hargrove took a step forward. Phoenix blood opens doors, seals them, make the impossible possible. And I have so many doors that need opening. The fire in Elizabeth's hands pulsed, responding to her fear. I'm not opening anything for you. You won't have a choice. Enzo's voice cut through, sharp and dangerous. She always has a choice. Hargrove's eyes flicked to Enzo, then Everett, then back to Easton. The Triplet Kings. I should have known. The West always sends its best when something precious is at stake. His smile turned cruel. Tell me, did you explain to her what happens after you retrieve her? Did you mention the ritual, the binding, the fact that Phoenix Omegas don't survive awakening without an anchor? Elizabeth's breath caught. She looked at Easton. What is he talking about? Easton's jaw tightened. He's lying. Am I? Hargrove's voice dripped with false sympathy. Ask them, Elizabeth. Ask them what their orders really were. Elizabeth's hands trembled, flames flickering. Easton. Not now. Yes, now. Elizabeth's voice cracked. What ritual? Everett spoke instead, voice low and controlled. Phoenix Omegas burn from the inside out when they awaken. The fire consumes them unless they bond with an alpha strong enough to ground them. Elizabeth's heart stopped. Bond. Mate bond, Enzo said quietly. It's the only thing that keeps the fire from killing you. Elizabeth's world tilted. And you were sent to bring you back, Easton finished. So you could bond with someone the West chose. Elizabeth's laugh came out broken. So everyone wants to use me. My father, Hargrove, your people, everyone. Not everyone, Everett said, stepping closer. Not us. You just said you were sent to bring me back for exactly that. We were, Easton admitted, but we're not doing it. Hargrove's laugh echoed through the hallway. How noble. But it doesn't matter what you want. She's awakening now, and without a bond. She'll burn herself to ash before sunrise. Elizabeth looked at her hands. The flames were brighter now, hotter, spreading up her arms in golden waves that felt less like power and more like countdown. How long? Elizabeth whispered. Hours, Everett said. Maybe less. Elizabeth's chest tightened. Then what? I just pick someone and bond with them? Like it's that simple? It's not simple, Enzo said, but it's necessary. Necessary. Elizabeth's voice shook with fury and fear. That's what everyone keeps saying. Necessary. Required. No choice. Just another cage with prettier words. It's not a cage, Easton said. Then what is it? Easton's eyes locked onto hers, raw and desperate. It's survival, and it's ours if you want it. Elizabeth's breath hitched. Yours. All three of us, Everett said quietly. If you'll have us. Elizabeth's world spun. That's not how mate bonds work. It is for Phoenix Omegas, Enzo said. One alpha isn't strong enough to anchor the fire. It takes three. Always has. Hargrove's voice cut through like a blade. How convenient. The Kings get exactly what they came for. A Phoenix Omega bonded to their bloodline. Power consolidated. Thrones secured. Elizabeth's hands clenched. Is that true? Yes, Easton said bluntly. Bonding with us makes us stronger, makes our claim to the West unshakable. But that's not why we're offering. Then why? Because we'd rather die than let Hargrove take you, Easton said. And we'd rather lose everything than force you into something you don't want. Elizabeth's throat burned. You're asking me to choose between burning alive or bonding with three men I've known for less than a day. We're asking you to trust us, Everett said softly. One more time. The flames crawled higher. Elizabeth's skin felt too tight, too hot, like her body was trying to contain something too big to hold. Hargrove moved closer, possessed women flowing around him like shadows. Or you could come with me. I have alphas ready, willing, strong enough to anchor you without the emotional baggage. Elizabeth's laugh came out sharp. You mean strong enough to control me? Control, protection, same thing from a certain angle. Not to me. Hargrove's expression hardened. Then you'll burn. And when you do, I'll collect what's left. Phoenix ash is still valuable. Rage flared hot in Elizabeth's chest. The fire responded, exploding outward in a wave that forced Hargrove back 3 steps. I'm not anyone's commodity, Elizabeth said, voice steady despite the terror clawing at her insides. Not my father's, not yours, not anyone's. Hargrove's smile returned, colder this time. Then you're a fool. Maybe, but I'd rather be a fool than a prisoner. The possessed women lunged. Easton shifted first, wolf erupting from human skin in a blur of fur and muscle. Everett followed, then Enzo, 3 massive wolves, moving as one, intercepting the attack before it reached Elizabeth. Chaos exploded, snarls, screams. the crash of bodies hitting walls. Elizabeth stumbled back, flames roaring around her like a living shield. Hargrove watched, unmoved. "You can't fight them all." "Watch me," Elizabeth said. Then she did something she didn't know she could. She let the fire loose, not wildly, not without control. She aimed it, shaped it, sent it crashing toward the possessed women like a tidal wave of light. They screamed, not in pain, in release. The demonic presence burned away, leaving the women gasping and sobbing and human again. Hargrove's expression shifted. Fear flashed across his face for the first time. "You're stronger than I thought," Hargrove said. "You have no idea," Elizabeth breathed. Then Easton was there, human again, standing between her and Hargrove. Blood streaked his jaw. His eyes burned with protective fury. "Leave," Easton said. "Now, while you still can." Hargrove's jaw tightened. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." Hargrove looked at Elizabeth one last time, something calculating in his gaze. "You'll come to me eventually, when the fire gets too hot. When you realize they can't save you." "I don't need saving," Elizabeth said. "I need choices, and I'm choosing them." The words hung in the air, absolute and final. Hargrove's smile turned bitter. "Then you've chosen death." He disappeared into the darkness, possessed women retreating with him like smoke. The hallway fell silent except for Elizabeth's ragged breathing and the crackle of flames still dancing across her skin. Enzo shifted back to human, bloodied but alive. "You okay?" Elizabeth's laugh came out broken. "No, but I'm still here." Everett appeared at her other side, gentle despite the violence still humming through him. "The fire's getting worse." Elizabeth looked at her hands. He was right. The flames were brighter, hotter, spreading faster now. "How long?" Elizabeth whispered. "Not long," Easton said quietly. Elizabeth closed her eyes. "Then I guess I'm out of time to overthink this." "You don't have to do anything you don't want," Enzo said. "I know." Elizabeth opened her eyes, looking at each of them in turn. "But I want this. I want you, all of you, not because I'm desperate, not because I have no choice, because you chose me first." Easton's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "You're sure?" "No," Elizabeth admitted, "but I'm brave enough to try anyway." Everett's fingers threaded through hers. Enzo's warmth pressed against her back. And the fire recognized them. The flames didn't burn. They wrapped around all four of them like a promise, golden and inevitable and right. Elizabeth felt the bond snap into place. Not a cage, not a chain, a tether, an anchor, a choice made and honored. The fire settled beneath her skin, warm but no longer consuming. She could breathe again. "Okay," Elizabeth whispered. "Now what?" Easton's smile was small but real. "Now we figure it out. Together." Outside, dawn broke across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and blood. Inside, something ancient and impossible had just been reborn. But in the distance, watching from shadows Elizabeth couldn't see, something else stirred. Because the fire hadn't just sealed doors, it had opened them too. And what waited on the other side was patient, hungry, and finally, free. Elizabeth's pulse thundered in her ears. She turned toward the window, instinct screaming danger. Easton's hand tightened on hers. "What is it?" "I don't know," Elizabeth breathed, "but something's coming." The bond hummed between them. Electric. Warning. Everett moved to the window, gaze scanning the tree line beyond the parking lot. Then he went very still. "We need to leave," Everett said. "Right now." "Why?" Enzo asked. Everett turned, and his expression made Elizabeth's blood run cold. "Because she's not the only phoenix that just awakened. This is just the beginning." Part 2 coming soon.